Hey, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the finals for the 2025 Arnold Classic South America just wrapped up, and the results were unsurprising. GoodVito picks up the victory here and the qualification for the 2025 Mr. Olympia. This is his first professional win in the IFBB. This is his first Olympia qualification, and this will be his Olympia debut this year. In second place, unsurprisingly, was Leandro Perez. In third place was Marcelo Pedro de Cruz. So let's talk about it here. I think, like I said, this was not a surprising result, and I think that GoodVito definitely did enough to win here. I think that was pretty clear at prejudging. He looked good, but I would say he didn't look 100%. I still kind of stick with my theory that maybe GoodVito treated this Arnold Classic South America as kind of a warm-up show for the Pittsburgh Pro, and maybe that's where he's going to bring his 110%, truly conditioned package. I felt like, his lower body always looks good. I mean, every time that we've seen him on stage, his lower body looks crazy in both muscularity and condition, but the upper body here just didn't seem to quite match. I think he's got a great structure in his upper body. He's got very wide shoulders. He's got a very good V-taper. I think it shows off his size very well. But conditioning-wise in the upper body, I don't think it was quite where it was when he did the Detroit against Martin Fitzwater. I don't think it's quite matching the lower body. And I just felt like this wasn't, it just wasn't as impressive as I think a lot of people expected. Now, again, I feel like he was just so far ahead of the other guys. And I feel like he probably went into this competition knowing that, and I feel like he probably treated this competition as such, because obviously this lineup was not going to be pushing him as much as the lineup in Pittsburgh is going to. Having a Mr. Olympia in that lineup, having Martin Fitzwater in that lineup, having Nick Walker, William Bonac, Michael Krizo, that's going to be much tougher for him. So I feel like maybe he was kind of saving his true peak for that show and didn't want to push it too hard for this, and I think he did just enough to win here. I'm not saying he looked bad. I think he looked good, and I think he deserved to win. I just felt like it was lacking that next level X factor. And I was talking to somebody after prejudging, and I thought they made a really good point. They said, maybe one of the reasons why GoodVito looks a little bit off, especially compared to what we see from him on Instagram, it could have been the tan. Because there are some guys that just look better in gym lighting that are really pale, and it shows the contrast in their physiques a lot better in like a really good gym lighting setting on Instagram. And some examples that come to mind would be guys like Evan Centopani, even James Hollingshead. Like, I feel like James, and that grainy look to his physique, almost looks better on Instagram without a tan. Then the other point that the person I was talking to made was a lot of times these European guys don't get like a real base tan before they put on their pro tan. So it's just, the pro tan going on top of a really pale physique. And that could have contributed to him looking, pretty different from how he looks on Instagram. I also think it could have been the lighting playing a big factor. I saw it was on the Fernando Arroyo Instagram page. They posted kind of like an edited version where they edited GoodVito into a lineup with Nick Walker, Derek Lunsford, and Martin Fitzwater, kind of a preview for the Pittsburgh Pro. But if you look at the video that they used of GoodVito in this, kind of hypothetical scenario video, that video is actually from the Detroit show where the lighting and backdrop was really good. And I feel like that made Vito's color look better. And I also feel like Vito was more conditioned at that show, especially throughout the upper body. So, if we took, I'm sure they probably will do this as well, take the video from this weekend's Arnold South America and put it up against Nick Walker, Martin Fitzwater, and Derek Lunsford. But this video that you're looking at here, this is Vito from Detroit that they put into this lineup here for Pittsburgh. And there was a couple things I noticed about Vito here that I do feel like are going to hold him back, especially against somebody like Derek Lunsford. One thing is definitely his back, and not just the fact that he needs to add more density to those mid to lower lats, but I felt like the way he was hitting like the back double bicep pose, like the angle he was hitting at was weird and kind of unflattering. Like the back shots, his conditioning in the lower body from the back looked great. Strided glutes, like crazy. The size of his legs just the crazy striations in his hamstrings because his legs are just so big. Lower body looks great from the back. But those back shots, even the back lat spread too, I felt like he was hitting him at a weird angle and kind of an unflattering way. And against Derek, and even somebody like Nick Walker, I've told you guys how much I like Nick Walker's back double. I think it's going to be a blowout in those poses at least. Nick Walker versus GoodVito, Derek versus GoodVito. I don't think GoodVito has a chance in those back shots. And then the other thing, like I said in the prejudging video, it felt like in so many of the poses that GoodVito's chest just looked really flat. I don't know if it's the way he was hitting the poses or if his chest itself actually lacks that volume. But I felt like even next to these guys, and again, no disrespect to these other competitors, but they're certainly not, a Derek, a Martin, or a Nick. It's kind of a different level. I felt like GoodVito in the upper body didn't stand out as much as I thought he would. Like, he didn't look that much crazier than these guys did, especially throughout, like, the chest and the shoulders. Now, he's got great arms, but I felt like the chest was lacking, and it could be the way he was posing, because it just, like, his chest kind of, like, disappeared in some of those poses. Like, the front lat spread, his chest was, like, gone. And obviously, that's not necessarily a pose that's meant to be, a primarily chest-driven pose, but still, you guys take the point. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below about these results at the Arnold Classic South America, about how GoodVito looked here, and about how you think GoodVito is going to place at the Pittsburgh Pro in about a month. So I guess we're about 5 weeks out right now, right? Now, next up in the news, an update from another guy that GoodVito is going to have to face in Pittsburgh, Michael Krizo. He's been posting some really impressive updates lately. This one I thought was really interesting because it's a comparison point of him right after he got his shoulder surgery in just a short amount of time back into training, and then him now here in April. And like the difference is insane, and it's less than a year's time. I think 6 or 7 months at this point. And I think after seeing how Krizo looks and how GoodVito looked at the South America show, I think it's probably more of a conversation of how is GoodVito going to do against even guys like Krizo or even guys like Bonac. And I just saw today that Bonac is actually confirmed that he's also doing the New York Pro, which I think a lot of these guys probably will. GoodVito is also doing that. He's doing Pittsburgh and New York. I would imagine Krizo probably will as well. But I'm just starting to see with GoodVito's physique, even if this wasn't him at 100%, even if that was intentional, even if he treated this as a warm-up show, some of those flaws in his physique, even if he came in with a much tighter package in Pittsburgh, I think those back poses are really going to be a detriment for him. I think in the side shots, guys like Nick Walker, in the side chest and the side tricep, I feel like they're also going to be able to beat Vito in those shots because I think Nick looks great from the side, and GoodVito, his arm, he's got crazy arms, but the point of his arm that is the weakest, I would say, is probably his tricep. And so the side tricep I would probably end up giving to Nick. And then the side chest, Nick is a lot fuller throughout the chest in that side shot. I'd give that to Nick as well. And then the back shots, like I said. So I feel like the more realistic conversation is probably, is GoodVito even going to be able to beat Michael Krizo? Is GoodVito even going to be able to beat William Bonac? And so looking at these updates of Krizo that are recent, I think Krizo, I kind of actually favor him over GoodVito based on what we saw in South America. And again, I don't want to be too negative on GoodVito here. It seems like some of those things that he needed to bring up, even though he looked bigger, I would say he looked like he'd put on muscle, but I still feel like he didn't fix some of those things that a guy like Derek or a guy like Nick or a guy like Martin are going to be able to expose on his physique. And like with Martin, here's the video that Martin posted, and this is from the Prague prep. So this was his last prep. So this is not recent. This is not from the Pittsburgh Pro prep. But one of the things that Martin, I would say, has over Vito is like that 3D fullness all over his body. His delts, his chest, his arms. He just has a level of fullness that GoodVito doesn't seem to have. And I guess that's how I would describe Vito's upper body here at the South America show, is there were just kind of these areas that looked flat. The posing was a little bit awkward in some of the shots. And I just think it's those little imperfections, as freaky as GoodVito is, as crazy as his legs are, it's those little things that I feel like are really going to hold him back in an elite level lineup like Pittsburgh. Now, there's always the scenario where GoodVito could come in crazy peeled, and some of these guys could come in off. If Nick and Martin and, if he came in peeled enough and they came in off enough, there's still a scenario where GoodVito could crack the top 3. But I think there's probably no chance that GoodVito is going to win the Pittsburgh Pro. Now, New York might be a different story, because we don't know who's going to go on to do that show. We don't know for sure that Nick is going to do it or Martin. Derek seems like a maybe. But I do think that Vito made the right move doing this show first, because I think it's going to be really tough for him to get a qualification had he not won this show at Pittsburgh or in New York. So it's good that he won this early, and he's going in with the Olympia qualification, not having to worry about it in Pittsburgh or New York. But I think it would be very, very tough for him if he had not done this show to get his qualification in New York or Pittsburgh. So I think this was probably the best possible move for him. And I think structurally, GoodVito has a great structure to hold the size that he has. And if he is able to bring up his back and bring up his chest and have that fullness in the chest, I feel like he still has a chance at being a very competitive top guy, even at the Olympia. And he needs to work on his posing as well. But I think if he makes those improvements, comes in tighter, that's a different story. It just seems like at this point, he hasn't made them yet. And I think lastly, I would just go over to the latest updates from Nick Walker. So this is just kind of going to be a Pittsburgh preview video based on what we saw from GoodVito today. Nick is back in his parents' basement taking these updates. And, what I've seen a lot of is a lot of people comparing Nick and Vito, specifically just the quads. And yes, when it comes to the quads, Vito has Nick beat. I don't think Vito has Nick beat anywhere else except for maybe the midsection. Better midsection / better taper and better quads. Other than that, I think every other pose I would give to Nick. So, like, maybe you would give GoodVito the abs and thighs. I think definitely you'd give that pose to GoodVito. Maybe the front lat spread, even though it's kind of a weak pose for both him and Nick, that might be a toss-up. The front double bicep, I think, is a really good pose for GoodVito. It shows off his taper very well. But, like, in these shots that you're looking at of Nick, I'm definitely giving Nick the most muscular. I'm giving Nick the back double bicep. I would give Nick both side shots. I guess the back lat spread, I think I'd give that to Nick too. So I'd have it like 5 poses to 3 for Nick, with maybe the front lat spread being a toss-up between him and Vito. I just don't know if Vito has improved enough to really be a threat to these guys. And like I said, I think he looked good at this show. I think he definitely did enough to win. But this show is very different from what we're going to see in Pittsburgh. And what was good enough here, I don't think will be good enough in Brazil. I think he has to come in significantly better than he was here to be competitive in Pittsburgh. Because while this package cut it here, it's just not going to cut it in Pittsburgh. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.